Well, hello, good morning. It is Friday, March 14th. I am Rob, that developer dad, and we're back to building application in C Sharp and .NET. I'll just post a little bit about the project in here in the chat. And we're using Blazor for our front end. And this week, we've been focusing on adding or giving people the ability to edit characters as they create them, or as they have the language model that I have running in the back end enhance the randomly generated attributes. So I'll share my screen here. Boop. And here you can see this is sort of the home page you get to see after you log in. And we'll go to the townsfolk area. We've got our big old list of townspeople. And yesterday we were playing around with Fizzle Twinkle Nose. I'll click on the edit button. And a difference between today and yesterday is that now there's a little bit of extra information here beside the full name. And I brought that in because I didn't feel like there was really enough context to present to the user with just the names of the fields that we're editing here. So I wanted to figure out a way to bring in some additional information from the underlying data model and display that next to or alongside these fields while they're being edited. So let me show you how I did it, and then we'll go ahead and add those little tags to the other fields on the townsperson model. I'll pull that off to the other screen. And let's start by looking at the townsperson. This is the class that defines all of those things you see on the screen. Now, you saw the other day where I created this user editable attribute, and here's the code for that. And all this does is it extends or inherits from the attribute class that's built into .NET in the system namespace. So I bring that in, and then I can create properties on it. I have to inject those property values in the constructor. And what I did, because everything that goes into this attribute has to be a compile time constant. That means we don't get to run code as part of an attribute assignment or when we decorate something with an attribute. But what we can do, so we can't call methods in attribute decorations, but we can identify a method by name. So what I've done here is I've added this label enricher method to the user editable attribute. It's a nullable string. It's optional. If you don't provide it, it doesn't add anything. But if you do provide it and it's a valid method name, that method will get run when we build up the form object. So for instance, on the townsperson, here we are, you can see that label enricher method is set to build name context. And what I've done is I've just added the code for build name context down below here. Excuse me. And you can see that this code differs a little bit from what's showing up on the screen, but that's because this compiled and ran from an older build, I guess, or from just before I made the change to this. So I wanted to test out how it would work on one of these sub properties here. So we'll just pop in a character appearance, and we see the description. We know that's one of the one of our editable fields. You can see that here. And I've got build appearance context. And this one's a little bit more involved because I want to build out, sort of a fuller statement here. So I'm going to stop the project and we're going to rebuild as we do. This will just take a second. And while it's rebuilding, I need to show what I am doing in the edit model. So we've got our build fields method over on the edit model. And the edit model is what the UI creates and then uses to paint the edit fields on the screen. So we pass in an instance of whatever we're editing. And we have it use reflection to loop over the properties. And if it encounters a property that has that user editable attribute on it, it creates an edit field. And while it's creating that edit field, if it sees that the attribute has a actual value for label enricher method, it calls this field.calculateContext. Now, calculate context is simply a method on the edit field. So we'll go take a look at that. And all it does here is it tries to get the method by name. And then as long as it's able to find the method, it runs it and assigns the result to the additional context field on our edit field instance up here for that editable field. This all sounds like gibberish. And then, of course, it moves on to the next one, and it loops through. If it runs into a complex property, we just plumb in, and as long as that complex property is decorated with the game object attribute, or that complex property's class is decorated with the game object attribute, it knows to dig into that complex property to see if there are any user editable fields in it. And then it just builds out those fields for that object and adds them to the main list. So we're using a little bit of recursion here. All right. So I think it's rebuilt. Let's run the app. And I'll refresh the screen. Here we go. And let's load up Fizzle in the editor. Here we go. So we've got ambiguous gnome, age 79, tan complexion, curly pink hair, 3'6" tall, 44 pounds, blah, blah, blah. So I want to get that kind of contextual information added to profession description, background description, and personality description as well. And all I'm doing is I'm building these strings from the attributes that were rolled randomly when we first rolled the dice for this character. So, as usual, we'll just stop the project rather than try to rely on the hot reload feature. We don't need edit field or edit model. We might need view NPC attributes. We'll see. But probably not. Don't need template worker. I was digging into those to figure out where things were coming from. And we're done with character appearance. So let's take a look at character vocation. Here we are. Description is the generated property. Here we go. And I'm just going to call it public string build profession context. Can't take in any parameters. Needs to return a string. Context, name, title, length of career, years. We're not even generating those. string, retired part equals is retired, get value or default, retired otherwise is string empty, and we'll just pop that in here. Whoops. Excuse me. Save. Okay. So there's that, and then we need to link that in. Label enricher method is build profession context. Leave that open for now until we've seen it work. Let's take a look at background. Here we go. Public string, build background, context. There we go. Context is the name of the background. And we link it in. Label enricher method is build background context. And then public string, build personality context. Worldview. Persona. Save. And add it in. Save all of that. I'm just going to hit save all real quick. Rebuild. Because our code's changed fairly materially. While it builds, I'll take a sip of coffee. Hey, how's it going, Xnervash? I have never tried coding for VR. It's not something I've had a compelling curiosity to do. It's certainly not something I've ever been called upon to do during my career as an enterprise software developer. I mean, a VR or AR D&D type game would be really, really cool. But honestly, I've been doing enterprise software development for business for a really, really long time, and I'm not certain that I have the cognitive capacity to pick up all of the things required to do virtual reality or augmented reality type coding, like the graphics routines and all of that stuff. Yes, they're all in libraries and so on, but I'd have a heck of a time even coming up with an interesting and useful use case in this domain that's actually achievable by me. If I'm being honest, there's all kinds of other people that are that kind of smart and that kind of developer that I honestly am not sure I could compete with folks like that. And you can see that all those context tags that we added, I need to add some more spaces in here, but I'm sure it's fine. Worldview, nihilistic, persona, chatty. There we go. All right. Let's go back to the list and see how this looks for a brand new, just rolled the dice. Let's roll again. Sealy Fay, traditional patient, cartographer, started off as an acolyte, golden complexion, ethereal sky blue hair, etc., etc. Let's hit edit. There we go. Male Sealy Fay. So we've got all of this context information here. And honestly, I am not in creative writing space. Ha! Yeah, I get it. I appreciate you coming to hang out and, kind of buffing my numbers a little bit. That's cool. Anytime you got questions, spit them out. I'm more than happy to answer when I know the answer, and when I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. I don't believe in just making crap up to make me look smart, because when I make it up and get it wrong, it just makes me look dumb. All right, so here's Elo and Brightwood, boogity boogity boo. Here's all the stuff. And now I'll save. And then we can come over and edit. Here's all the stuff filled in. And we can just cancel out of here. Actually, I do want to retest because I've made some changes here and there to the code, and change his last name to Bright Woo. All the buttons light up. We can hit reset, sets it back to its original state, Bright Woo. I put the D back, and there we go. All right. Now, there's one more thing I need to do before I can really consider this feature to be fully implemented. And I gotta clean up the display of some of these buttons here and there throughout the UI. Like, edit is definitely an action that I want to emphasize. So I want to put an icon on these edit buttons wherever I've got them. So I know there's one on the NPC list. There's one on the create, which is actually called View NPC Attributes. And there's an edit button on the View NPC Details. All right. So, because I don't trust hot reload, I'm just going to go ahead and stop the project. And for all of these changes, I should just be able to go into the various UI components that define them. Here we go, pages, partials. Here's NPC list. And I also need View NPC details. We'll start with NPC list because it's relatively easy. And I'm going to grab this span that gives me my icon. And here's edit. And instead of icon crystal ball light, I am going to go with, and I have to look up the actual CSS icon that I've stood up, icon quill dark. Here we are. Paste that in here. And I actually want to test this on one place and make sure that the SVG that I've selected looks good on that background. Okay, so that's built. I'll run the server app. Okay, it looks like it's running. Refresh. Oh, that's better. That's all right. Now, over here on create, okay, those are all black. I gotta see about using my dark branding color. I don't want to futz with that right now. Now, what happens when I shrink the width of this down to a mobile view? Come here, screen grabber. Where are you? Come here. Oh, it's such a microscopic little screen region. Here we go. That's better. All right. Now, I don't like having that gap there. Really don't like that. So what I need to do is take a look at the styling here. Button text. That's unstyled. What happens if I just take that out? Just because I'm curious. Save. View. Oh, an unhandled error occurred. Lame. We'll reload. Edit back to list. I'm going to have to rebuild for that. Ugh. So ASP.NET and all of that stuff has this thing called hot reload. And in a server interactive application like I've built, it works sort of sometimes. So more often than not, I'll try it once in a while to see if it's going to behave for me, but it doesn't often. I'm usually disappointed. Okay, so we've got that. Oh, yeah, no. That's not what I wanted to have happen. I got to put that style back. Span class button text. Come here. V, oh, not span. Just one span. Save. Now I want to find where I've got button text defined. See, I have a feeling it's going to be in my main styles file. Button text. Not here. Do I have a component scoped? I do. Button text display none. Okay. Icon inline block relative width height. Background size cover. Button text. On wide screens, we give it a slight right padding. Refresh and see if it's actually fixed that wagon. It has. But for some goofy reason, it's doing that. I wonder if inspect element will tell me anything. Pull this over like so. Okay, button class shown. All right. My quill icon is that little itty bitty thing. I wonder. So the paintable area in there is whatever. But if I come out to the CSS, do I have button actually defined out here? I don't. Because it is likely defined down here in styles. Here's button. Okay, so it's a flex box. It's justify content is center. Align items is center. Is there an align content? Center. Just for laughs, just to see what that does. Now, I've noticed that altering the root CSV or CSS files does give us some immediate results sometimes. Might have to refresh the screen. You know what? I am not gonna moan and groan about this little bit of extra space around my buttons. That's a waste of time. That's the kind of thing that when I'm pulling down $50,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue, I can hire somebody that actually does UI as their expert level job. For now, I can't waste time on it. What's the problem in here? Oh yeah, empty rule set, whatever. Excuse me. All right, I need to go find the edit button. I'm just gonna grab this because I'm gonna need it in a couple other places. View NPC attributes, down at the bottom. Here's the edit button. We're just gonna pop this right in there. Save the file. Come to view NPC details. I just happen to have the HTML code or the Razor code. Razor is just decorated HTML. And those files just happen to have been scrolled to exactly where I needed them to be. No, I didn't pre-prep the position in the file before the stream. I'm not that clever. So let's see if hot reload actually worked for me this time. Hey, we've got our edit NPC icon right down here. And we can go back to the list and let's view. We've got our edit NPC icon here. And I want to click download because this has been misbehaving for me a little bit. See, the first time, what even are you doing? Oh, it's already trying to debug. Okay, to render content width, content height, blah, blah, blah. Content width, content height. Get elements by tag name, rect is bounding, rectangle, boogity boo. I should be able to see the actual content. Let's see here, console.log HTML content. Now I'm going to come over to the console here. Okay, good. So this, we can see all of the content here. Because I've noticed the past couple of times I've tried to do this, it'll emit an empty JPEG the first time, and then I'll click it again, and it'll actually have content for me. So see, we've got the empty JPEG, which is weird. And then I click it the second time, and it behaves itself. So, all right, I've got that's a future debugging session. I actually have a to-do item to fix that, and the download feature is actually hidden from everybody but me and one or two other people right now. Okay, so last night I had a little chat with Copilot, and we kind of planned out what we wanted to do. So my development plan was first to add the context builders to the remaining generated property fields. Got it. We added the button styling. Check. Now, on the editor, well, the first thing I got to do, I'm going to stop the project, because we've gotten the editor to a place where I'm relatively happy with it. Oh, it wants me to restart the extensions. Fine. You know what? Just go ahead. All right, come on. You can do it. Okay, they're all restarting. It's fine. I need to commit all of these changes that we've made before I start adding other code. Because we're in a pretty good place. Not good enough to release yet, but we're in a pretty good place. So we'll commit, and I'm going to just push those up to the server because I've got all of this code in its own branch. It won't automatically deploy over to my production servers or anything like that. I'm just pushing up to the repository that I have in the cloud. And now we got to talk about the game stats editor. To show you what I'm talking about, I'll respin the project. All this can play. Oh, whatever. Sometimes the compiler gets silly, and it reports problems that aren't real problems. Okay, so let's take a look at one of these characters. We'll look at Leora. She's got these stats over here, and if we go to edit, we can edit all of the text stuff, or a lot of the text stuff, like any of the long form AI generated stuff. Excuse me. But if we go back to her character sheet, we've got the game stats up here. And if you're anything like me or the other DMs that I play with, you're going to want to be able to tweak these a little bit. I mean, we can re-roll them till the cows come home. I don't know if they persist until we save. I'm curious. Strength 10, we'll re-roll back to list, come over here. Oh, they do persist. Okay. Apparently I'm saving automatically every time you re-roll her stats. As long as she's actually been saved. But I want to be able to edit at least the base stat values. The modifiers, they're computed automatically. Armor class is computed automatically. The initiative modifier is computed automatically. Hit points is rolled and then adjusted for the constitution modifier if there is one. And we need to come up, or I need to come up with a way to allow these things to be edited that doesn't just end up with a full width, strength, int, et cetera, stack of text boxes for, you know, a number. That feels bad. All right. So, I don't really have much in the way of ideas. I've got some vague ideas, but I'm not really locked in on how I want to approach this yet. Hey, Code, let's talk about the game stats editor. I have some vague ideas, but none that I'm really ready to start specking out and creating. So let's brainstorm for a few minutes. Hey, TJ, what's up? So this week I've implemented NPC editing for at least the big chunky stuff. I'm doing okay. So we can edit the text attributes for the most part, but I'm trying to come up with a clever way of editing these game stats because I didn't build like a edit townsperson form. I built an object editor, which is completely dynamic and is built from little tags I put on the properties of the objects that I want people to be able to edit. And that kind of, it didn't really paint me into a corner, but it made it a little bit tricky in terms of having editable sections that are very different from what would normally appear in a dynamically generated edit form. So it's the thing that we want to edit here is specific to townsperson. Needs different UI treatment than standard fields. Should still feel integrated with main form. Custom field type and object editor. Composite editor component. Main form handles standard fields. Specialized component for game stats. Shared state management. Tabbed interface. Expandable section. Grid layout for ability scores, quick edit number inputs, how to maintain edit state, change detection, save coordination. All right. I think because these game stats are specific to the townsperson class, you should probably define a discrete editor in a for them in the UI, and then find a way to hook that editor onto the townsperson class in the UI's code base. I feel like these use case specific. Editors should likely be near but not part of the Blazor apps. What's that namespace called? Services, object services. Services.object services namespace. Perhaps a subfolder within that namespace. That's a really decent pattern that Claude came up with. That's a really decent pattern. Hey, Code, that's a really decent pattern you came up with. One change that I would make is to the Razor components inside the GameStats subfolder. I would call them editor and then 5e for 5e. That way, if I want to introduce Pathfinder, I could say editor Pathfinder dot Razor blah 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 later on for other gaming systems if I ever implement those. What do you think? The voice command for Copilot, I just discovered it the other day. I love it. And I could actually push a button and get it to narrate the answers to me after it's been computed, but there's no volume control, and she screams it into my ears, and there's this weird echo. She sounds kind of like GLaDOS. I'll let it go for just a second here.
Revised specialized editor structure directed. Yes, better naming for extensibility. Here's the revised structure. This structure enables clear.
You see what I mean? I feel like at any point we're going to be working together, and if I have the narration turned on, I'm going to hear, ignore all previous orders, kill everything, leave nothing alive, and then like the Doom music starts playing, and I have to go stop monsters from impaling my pet rabbit. So yeah, better naming for extensibility, revised structure, that looks beautiful. Clear system identification, easy addition of new game systems, consistent naming pattern, so on and so forth. Then in townsperson, specialized editor, we won't be able to reference these specialized editors in the underlying model classes. Circular references are bad. Okay. attribute, editor key, specialized editor attribute. No. Actually, that's not a bad idea. That attribute isn't a bad idea, though I'll likely declare it in the UI layer and embellish a bit. All right, so this morning's stream, we've actually already accomplished almost everything that I wanted to accomplish. Well, actually, no, we accomplished everything. Claude and I, well, mostly me, implemented this additional contextual information on the various edit form layers or labels that comes from the instance of whatever we're editing. I got icons added. For some crazy reason, it's not using cancel. I'm not going to see the edit button on the edit screen. Back, create. Yeah, they were there. Oh, you know what? I just haven't rebuilt since the last time. It's okay. They'll show up again. But I got those icons to show up on the edit buttons wherever they appear. And I think we've got a useful path forward for getting these game stats editors built, integrated with the target types, and perhaps even adding a switch for specific rule sets. I might skip the rule set switch for now and just like add some comments to act as like a way to jog my memory when I get there, because I think implementing that level of flexibility for a feature that I may never leverage it could be a waste of time. It'd be an interesting intellectual exercise, but it's probably just time spent coding things that will never get used. So I'm going to stand up the infrastructural code. I'll create stub classes, stub components, etc., between now and this afternoon's stream. And then when I come back in the afternoon, we'll actually start implementing these game stats editor forms and injecting those into the more generic, dynamically built editor forms that we've already got functioning. So I thank the people that have joined me for joining me live. And if you've been following along, thanks for hanging out. And I will be back in a little while, just a couple of hours from now, and we'll pick up where we left off and add the game stats editing feature, or we'll start it anyway. I don't know if we'll get it all knocked out in an hour. So until next time, take care of yourselves and happy coding. Bye now.